Thank you. Now let's talk more about this latest cancer research. CBC's medical specialist, Dr. Karl, in to conclude Chasing Cures, and thanks for coming in this morning. Really interesting report that Kelly's just brought us there, and we'll talk about it in more detail. But overall, when we talk about Chasing Cures, this is for sure the big one. And yet, after decades of research, the cure for cancer is elusive. Why is that?
Well, as Kelly said in her piece, cancer is not just one disease, but it's many different, maybe 200 or more different types of diseases, all under the rubric of cancer. Not only that, but when somebody has cancer, let's say someone has a tumor in their prostate, for example, it may be more than one type of cancer or type of tumor in the same in the same disease. So that one treatment that's effective against part of that tumor may not be effective against that same tumor, but in other parts. You see what I mean? So multiple approaches as well. We know that cancer can become resistant to some of the treatments that we put forward. So it's an ever-changing picture. And as the researchers have said, we're getting closer to new strategies to kind of circumvent that problem.
And Kelly took a look at this, some of the very interesting work that research lab is doing, focusing on T cells. Just explain for us a little bit in more detail, but simply for us non-doctors, how that would, number one, what a T cell is.
Well, T cell is one of your white blood cells, and it has the ability to target defective cells, cancerous cells, or diseased cells and kill them. And so the idea here is that your immune system, to an extent, can fight cancer. But what they're hoping to do is amplify that response. So if you picture an army of T cells in your blood, if you could swell the numbers to the point where they overwhelm more soldiers in the fight against the cancer.
So that's interesting. So immunotherapy is one of these areas of promise.
Yes.
So what other kind of area will we look at for this? I mean, you brought up the whole area of personalized medicine. So that's a very popular term right now, personalized medicine.
That's right.
And cancer seems to be really where it could come into play.
Exactly. So the T-cell approach is one example. Personalized medicine basically just means tailoring the treatment specifically to that individual and to their particular disease or cancer. We also have other types of targeted therapies. Avastin was an example that was in the headlines last year because it was withdrawn as a treatment for breast cancer. It's still effective against other cancers, but with Avastin, what it does is it strangles the blood supply to the tumor, killing off the cancer. So you can imagine researchers in their labs thinking of all these novel ways of approaching a very complex and difficult problem, sometimes using the body's own defenses, sometimes using medications, but all the time trying to contain this thing that's ever-changing.
It was interesting, again, referring back to the research in Kelly's report, they're using the T cells in this targeted approach against melanoma in the first case. Is there something about melanoma, the most serious form of skin cancer, that makes it a good place to start?
Well, yes, and so when you're sort of trying out new therapies in research, you want to target those diseases that are going to be the most susceptible. And that's where we talk about how with 200 different types of cancer, each one is going to require a different approach. So in some cases, like in this case, immunotherapy seems to be effective. In other cases, we're going to have to rely on some of the more traditional chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgery to deal with it. And in still others, the key is going to be catching it early. So we need to have better screening tests and more refined tests that will tell us which cancers are going to just sort of sit there and which ones are going to be aggressive. And we're not good at doing that in all cases yet.
Screening a key piece of the future as well. Dr. Karl, thank you. Chasing Cures. Today it's cancer. Dr. Karl, part of our coverage today on CBC News Network. And later on tonight, we're going to talk more